guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. I'm joining you today from a new angle, from a new piece of furniture. I am now joined with my new reading chair, which is very big and very soft, but still trying to figure out how to exactly sit and film from it, so nonetheless, very excited about it. Another thing I'm very excited about is today's video topic, which is basically books I would sell my soul for to be able to read for the first time. Some, if not all of these books, are some of my all-time favorites, but also what came with them was the actual reading experience itself, especially given the fact that many of these books I've read at different points in my life and they kind of captured me for different reasons. And as much as I want to read the story again because I loved it, I also want to kind of capture that feeling of how unbelievably captured I was by this story again as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the books. The first book shouldn't be too much of a surprise, and that is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I believe I've read this series through at least 3 total times, if not more, and obviously I featured this book a lot across my channel. It's on my top 10 favorite fantasy series of all time. I love Brandon Sanderson, I love his books, and Mistborn is no exception. But this book also holds kind of a special place in my heart for a variety of reasons. Primarily, this had to be one of the first kind of adult high fantasy stories I had ever read. I read it for the first time my freshman year of college, and it honestly just blew my mind. And it makes sense, the plot is fantastic, and if I had read it nowadays, I'm sure it would have done the exact same. But I had just never encountered anything so explosive and imaginative, so well constructed, from the magic system to the politics to the twists and turns. It just completely kind of rewrote what I thought stories could deliver in terms of plot. I was like, wow, I need more of this ASAP, and so began my, general obsession with Brandon Sanderson. But Mistborn was really one of the first books that kind of showed me how epic high fantasy could truly be. So not only is this series just one of my favorites, and I would love to read it again for the first time, but I would just love to have that feeling of oh my gosh, this exists in the world. I can't wait to read more things like that, if that makes sense. But if for some reason you're not familiar with Mistborn, the first book is The Final Empire, and it basically is set in a world where the Dark Lord won. The magic system in this series is really awesome. It has to do with the consumption of metals, with each metal kind of having a different manifestation of power. You are considered Mistborn if you're able to control all the different metals, and therefore you're also really, really powerful yourself. The first one basically follows a ragtag group of individuals trying to overthrow the Dark Lord, and you also primarily follow a young girl, Vin, as she kind of encounters her powers for the first time. It's so good. I love this series so much. One I am sure I will continue to reread throughout my entire life. I love it so much, and it's also generally the place I always say to start with Brandon Sanderson. I know it's technically out of order, and I'm definitely biased because this is where I started with Brandon Sanderson, but it was such a great time. I love it so much. Next up, I have 2 series that I'm kind of bundling together, and that is Percy Jackson, both the original series as well as the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan. I read these books pretty much as they were releasing in middle school and have not been able to shake Rick Riordan for my entire life. I just find his narratives, his stories just to be so imaginative and clever, and I also just love all the mythology elements to it as well. But yeah, when I encountered Rick Riordan for the first time in 7th grade, let me just say, it was a monumentous moment. I absolutely could not shake how much I loved these books, and I also excelled within the Greek mythology unit we had later that year within my history class, so thank you so much, Rick, for that. I would say the Percy Jackson series, again, was just kind of one of those moments in reading where I found something that I just did not want to put down, and definitely kind of re-sparked my love for reading in middle school. I've always been a big reader, but I had a few years there where I didn't read as much, and Percy Jackson, Twilight, and a few others like the Golden Compass series really reignited my love for reading. But I would say at the forefront of that, it was definitely Percy Jackson. This, of course, is a classic middle grade story following our main character Percy. In the first one, he basically discovers that he's the son of Poseidon. He goes to Camp Half-Blood, has to save the world with his friends. Gods are walking the earth. There's all sorts of trials they have to work through. It's so cute and funny, and I actually haven't reread the original 5 books within the Percy Jackson series I think since I read it for the first time all those years ago. So honestly, it feels like this is very much due for a reread and I cannot wait. I actually want to try to like marathon read all 5, maybe in like a weekend or something, but Rick Riordan, Heroes of Olympus, Percy Jackson will forever live in my heart. I will also say, with growing up kind of waiting for the anticipation of each one of these books coming out, that teaches you patience as a kid, you know? Like, I did not just get to read all these books at once. I started on book 2 and I had to wait, and that wait was long. Next up is a more recent read, but was one that was just so explosive, and it's also ending this year, which is making me feel a little sad. Like, I just want to savor it for as long as possible, and I wish I could read it again for the first time, and that is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I loved this book, and I would also say this book kind of showed me that I do love urban fantasy. I have definitely taken quite a break from urban fantasy in general and prefer more traditional high fantasy or medieval fantasy settings, and for the most part I just didn't check out too many urban fantasy stories within the adult fantasy space, but then Jade City came around and I was like, wait a second. This book is amazing. It is explosive. The characterizations, just the inspiration, the setting, everything about it was just so captivating. The first one, the second one, could not put them down. Again, the third one comes out later this year. It's also being adapted into a television show, which praise, because I've said since I've read like the first 50 pages of this book, it needs to be adapted. It's just so visual. I'm going on and on. But Jade City is an Asian-inspired urban fantasy story set in the fictional city of Kekon. Here, Jade is the lifeblood of this city, and basically individuals who are able to harness the power of Jade are kind of stronger, faster, better than the average person. Jade is also a very rich resource, and a lot of people are kind of vying for the control of both the distribution and the selling of this product. Specifically, 2 very powerful crime families within the city kind of control all of the Jade supply. The tensions between these 2 families are beginning to rise at the start of the first one, and this tale itself is multi-POV, and we follow different kind of members of one specific family within the city of Kekon at different kind of levels and power within the organization. Not only are you following kind of an external conflict between them and this other family, but all of the internal, complicated, and messy politics that come with running a family enterprise and business. This book is intense, the combat is incredible. Loved the first 2 books. I wish I could start it over and read it for the first time again. The third book comes out later this year. I cannot wait. Just one of the best fantasy series I have read in the past couple of years. I've loved it so much. Next up is another one that is on nostalgia, and that is basically anything by Cassandra Clare. This is another author I have been reading since middle school and have just not been able to get enough of her writing my entire life. It's just so engaging and engrossing, but I would say like nothing could beat that feeling I had when I was just head first in the City of Bones and the Infernal Devices series in middle school and high school. And I would say in some ways it's been so long since I've had this feeling of not being able to put a book down and reading like 1,200 pages in 48 hours, doing none of my homework, reading in class, reading during lunch break, reading in the hallway between my classes because I just had to know what was going to happen next. Just this feeling of being so connected to the characters and their angst and their struggle. It was just heartbreaking. Particularly the Infernal Devices was one that just absolutely destroyed me. So that's more to say I really want to transport myself just temporarily back in that period of my life and reread the Infernal Devices again for the first time, or honestly any Cassandra Clare book, because I don't think it would have the same power if I didn't know the plot here and now. I need also the environment and my own personal angst of being a teenager to just really fully appreciate that experience, but it was just like nothing else. It completely took over my life in the best way possible. And honestly, as I said, I still love Cassandra Clare books to this day. I just feel like her stories have really evolved, one with the times, but she's just able to consistently deliver an angsty, dramatic, entertaining YA urban fantasy story full of so many different characters and points of views and different kind of magical creatures and conflict. They're just so entertaining, and I have read, I don't know, like 13, 14 books by hers by this point in my life, and I will continue to do so. If anything, I think objectively, her newest series is the best one. Chain of Gold, incredible. Chain of Iron, unstoppable. Just Cassandra Clare is still continuing to do it, but if I could just bottle up that feeling, that devotion I had when I was 16 and experience that again for the first time, I'm just saying I think it would be fun. That's all. Next, I have the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, which is another more recent read for me. And oh my gosh, if only I could read this again for the first time. This is a fantasy series that definitely took over my life. I read all 3 books within this series back to back to back. I could not put it down. I very rarely marathon a series in that fashion, but I just couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for next month's TBR. I completely put everything else in my life aside until I read the entirety of the Broken Earth trilogy. Again, this was kind of another big shift for me in fantasy because I truly had just never encountered anything like this story, narrative, just the devices, just everything used within this was just extraordinary. And I would say a lot of people agree, as every book within this trilogy won the Hugo Award as it was released. And in general, I just feel like how creative and well plotted this book was. It just lives on another plane for myself personally. So I would love to be able to read this for the first time again, especially the feeling I had after finishing book 1. When I tell you I exclaimed so loudly on the subway surrounded by hundreds of people during my commute to work when I finished this first book, it was a moment we all shared within that crowded subway car. But this series is just amazing. Will forever be one of my top 3 favorite fantasy series of all times. Just absolutely earth-shattering, and I mean that a little bit as a pun too. But this trilogy of course starts with the 5th season, which opens on a few different POVs of different women, kind of in different life stages, kind of all going on their personal quest and journey. We follow a mother in search of her lost daughter. We follow a young girl who's kind of beginning her own training to kind of harness her magical powers. And we also follow a young woman kind of beginning her magical professional career. And something to note about this fantasy world is that it's constantly living on the brink of devastation and destruction. Civilization is constantly beginning and ending due to the whims of the earth itself. And within this fantasy world, there's also individuals who kind of harness the power of the earth itself, but instead of being lauded as possible saviors, they are ostracized and very much controlled by the populace at large. This series is just mind-boggling. It's so good. It's just, not only is N.K. Jemisin talking politics and magic, but just all the other different things that she weaves within the story will just blow your mind, basically, is what I'm trying to tell you. And I wish I could read it again for the first time, but because I can't, you could. The next book that is on my list is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is the first book to the Scythe series. I included this book for a few different reasons. One, I honestly think it's amazing. I personally really enjoyed this trilogy so much from beginning to end, but I would also say this series kind of reminded me that I do still really enjoy YA. I kind of felt like I was on a bit of a rut for a while, and then I picked this book up with honestly very low expectations and was just blown out of the water. I just thought it was such an interesting concept. I thought it was explored in a really fascinating of ways. I've always enjoyed Neil Shusterman's writing a lot. It was just a series that really reminded me all the things I do love about YA. What also made the series very fun is that Clay also read and really enjoyed it, so we were able to kind of read and discuss as we kind of made our way through each book, which definitely added an extra layer of enjoyment, if you will. But I just think this series is just clever. It's dark, it's harrowing. It's basically set in a utopian, dystopian world where humanity has kind of cured all ailments that would have killed people off, from disease to poverty. So now, to kind of control the population, they've basically allowed these individuals called Scythes to be chosen, and they basically cull the population to ensure that it doesn't kind of reach over capacity. The methods that these individuals use vary depending on their own personal style and personality, and we basically follow 2 characters who have become apprentice Scythes, and they're kind of being introduced to this world and politics. They quickly realize that what they thought would be full of empathy and understanding people who are so close to death is actually rife with corruption and power plays, and it's just an absolute wild time from beginning to end. It also has conversations around technology and belonging and religion. I honestly loved the Scythe series. It was so hard for me to put down. It was just an absolute page turner and just so enjoyable to read, even though it was honestly also very disturbing at times. I really liked this, and I also, again, really loved being able to read it with Clay, and that is definitely something I personally would like to do again, which is why I would say I'd want to read this again for the first time. And the very last book I'm going to talk about is another one that completely destroyed my life last year. I honestly could not put this down or any of the subsequent books down at all. My heart is still recovering, and that is Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. Obviously, I love Robin Hobb a lot. I have an entire shelf directly behind me dedicated to her books, particularly the Live Ship Trader series, which is the second trilogy within Robin Hobb series, still stands as by far my favorite, not only of hers, but basically any fantasy book I've ever read. Just all of the different characters and just the careful plotting and just the anticipation and how much Robin Hobb was able to just pull from you. Nothing is rushed within this series, so it makes for some of the most incredible payoffs and also just some of the most painful scenes you will ever come across within fantasy. I just feel like this series is just a culmination of what multi-POV fantasy should be. We're traveling all over the place, we're following all these disparate plot lines that slowly come together. We follow characters who have some of the greatest character arcs that you will encounter within fantasy, and it's just epic. And it has dragons. What more do I need to say? But this is a high fantasy story following, again, a huge variety of characters, but are primarily centered on one trading town. And this world, wood can be magicked, and there are something called live ships, which are ships that are in fact alive. And we follow one family who's kind of embarking out on their live ship. We also follow pirates, as well as a variety of different political things that are happening in the area. It's just so good, and some of the best female characters I've ever read within fantasy. It's just, if only I could read this again for the first time, it would be everything to me. Alrighty guys, those are the books I wish I could read for the first time again. Let me know down below some books you love so much, as I would love to know, and I will see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!